What's going on, guys? It's Elias. Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be talking about why I think right now is the right time to buy a BMW E90. Just like the E90 I have behind me, I think the E90 series is a perfect car to buy right now. You can get them between $5,000 and $15,000 depending on the mileage. And man, you got a lot of choices. You got the 325s, you got 330i's from 2006, you got the 328i's. Those are all really reliable. You got the 335i's. That's the turbocharged engine. It's less reliable, but very inexpensive way to make a whole lot of power. And behind me, we're driving the 335D. 335D has been Jane's daily driver. It's been an awesome vehicle. Lots of good mileage on it. About between 35 and 40 miles to the gallon. It's been very reliable. It's a powerhouse. I love these things. So let's go over the reasons why I think right now you should be looking at E90s and why the E90, in my opinion, is one of the best 3 Series that BMW's ever made. So what makes the E90 such a good car to buy right now? Man, there are so many reasons. Let's go over them all. Well, first and foremost, there's a whole bunch of different E90s that you can actually buy. So we're gonna go over the positives, the negatives for each one of them. We're gonna go over why I think, for the enthusiasts especially, the E90 is such a good car to buy right now. We're currently in the 335D. I think the 335D right now is a hell of a buy for a lot of people. I've done a ton of videos on 335Ds, which I'll be linking down below in the description in case you want to take a look at those. There's a lot of power and a lot of fuel economy, honestly, for very little money. Love this car to death. So let's go ahead and get started. So one of the first reasons I think, and one of the best reasons to buy a E90 BMW is because of reliability. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to think, it's like, wait a minute, are we talking about used BMWs? Did you just say reliability? Are you nuts? I totally get it. I understand that sentiment, but hear me out. I think the E90 is one of the most, if not the most reliable 3 Series that BMW ever made. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. And so I think one of the main reasons is because I think it's the last iteration of a naturally aspirated inline 6 for the 3 Series that you could buy for the BMW. Now, inline 6s have been in BMW 3 Series for a long time. I used to own one a long time ago, a BMW 325IS that was an inline 6, a 2.5 liter inline 6, and they kept making better and better inline 6s throughout the years. The last year they made a naturally aspirated inline 6 was for the E90, the 2011 inline, and I'm talking specifically about America, obviously the United States. There are different models outside of the United States, but I think the inline 6 from the 2007 to 2011 or even 2006 model years are awesome inline 6s, and that's because they've been developed for many years. The reliability is rock solid. I mean, they've been developed so long that BMW got them absolutely right. The build quality for them is basically perfect. Again, they've been building them, different iterations of them, but basically the same thing for such a long time. Hard to get it wrong. They're silky smooth. Inline 6s are known to be super smooth engines, and they're quite lovely. One of the best inline 6s is found in the E46 M3, again, another 3 Series. That's an awesome inline 6, and even some of their turbo 6s are really good. So being that the 328 and the 330i from 2006 to 2011 were the last inline 6s, I mean, I think that by itself should prove to you guys one of the best buys you can do right now is finding yourself a very nice 328i or 330i, hopefully manual, but even automatics are pretty good. That'll be a really nice buy right now. So if reliability is not your jam necessarily, you want something with a lot of power. And the top models for the 3 Series were the M3 obviously, but also the E90 335D and the 335i. And man, if you want a runway runner, if you want a drag racer, if you want a time attack car, and you want to build it inexpensively, get yourself a 335i, even some of the older ones with the N54 or the newer ones. And if I get the engine designation, I apologize in advance, but I'll put it down below. And they're just awesome engines, really, really tunable, really, really reliable, as long as you know what you're doing with them. Of course, you got to make sure that the fuel pumps are changed, make sure that everything is done right on the fuel pumps, the fuel management, make sure the tunes are done correctly. There's valve cover gaskets that need to be changed and other maintenance items, just like anything else. But really, I consider those E90s, the 335i's, the 340i's in the E90. Actually, I don't think there was a 340i for the E90. That 335i, man, that thing can tune a lot of power. Now, when it comes to the 335D, the car we're currently in, about $2,500 to $3,000 gets you the ABC Delete and a nice tune from Castle Performance, from Malone, from Beam Performance Center. There's other places you can get tunes, and it just really opens it up. It gets close to 400 horsepower and between 500 and 600 foot-pounds of torque to the crank, and a little bit less obviously to the wheels, but it's just extremely powerful for what it is. It's really impressive, and for not a lot of money, you get a really, really, really powerful car. Twin turbo, inline 6 diesel, you can't go wrong with that. So we talked about the engine reliability, we talked about some of the power capabilities that it has, some tunabilities. I think let's talk about the transmissions next, because the transmissions, all of the transmissions for the BMW E90 were pretty robust. Again, the 335D, this vehicle that we're in, uses a ZF 6-speed transmission, the same transmission basically used in Rolls-Royce Phantoms and other high horsepower vehicles and heavy vehicles. The all-wheel drive models of the 328, and yes, you can get them all-wheel drive, which we'll talk about in a minute. The all-wheel drive models also had really robust transmissions. I believe they were from GM. No problems with them. The only thing you got to make sure is that you change the fluid on those, you change the fluid in the filter. But automatics, stick shifts, it doesn't matter. Both of those transmissions types were really reliable in all of the E90s. I think they completely got it right when they built the E90. It was extremely well built, and the transmission was no slouch. This current transmission, I'm extremely impressed with the amount of torque you can throw at it. I've seen 335Ds with over 300, 400,000 miles, and their original transmission. Yeah, sometimes at around 200 to 300,000 miles, you got to change the mechatronic sleeve, and that's basically a $400 to $700 job. But that's really not a big deal, considering that the rest of the transmission is very, very strong. And like I said, even the 335i, the 328i's, all of those transmissions are extremely strong. Very impressive. So as I drive through these twisty roads, I'm reminded of yet another reason why the E90 is probably the best 3 Series out there right now for the money. I mean, you can get these things for like 8 grand, 7 grand, under 100,000 miles. You can throw a few upgrades to them and have a really nice car. The main reason is because it still has hydraulic power steering. That's right. So this car right here has hydraulic power steering. Super impressive that even a modern car like this has hydraulic. This is actually the last year BMW offered hydraulic power steering in their 3 Series. And it makes this car way more valuable. If you drive one of the newer 3 Series, the newer 335 or 340i's or the new 328Ds, they don't feel nearly as good as this car does. I mean, this car really does feel amazing when it comes to driver feel, and that has a lot to do with hydraulic steering. Now, in the same aspect, the same vein of handling, there are a ton of suspension upgrades you can do to all of the cars. I mean, all of the E90s share the same frame, share the same suspension geometry, except for the XI models. The all-wheel drive models have different control arms and things like that. But even for them, there's a ton of upgrades you can do. You can do a lot of M3 bushing and differential upgrades. You can do a lot of upgrades to the springs, you can get coilovers. The aftermarket for these is incredible. For example, in the current car that we're in, the 335D, my 335D, we upgraded to the Bilstein B6 shocks, and these shocks are really, really good. I've had them for I think at this point 60,000 miles. They make the car a little bit stiffer, and it makes the car kind of flatter around curves. It just makes it that much better. And because it's not a newer vehicle with adaptive suspension, you don't have to get sensor cancellation kits. You don't have to worry about other sensors going off. It's a simpler 3 Series that you can easily upgrade pretty much like any other vehicle out there. I love having this car as a place that I'm going to be building from very soon, by the way. So we've come this far. We discussed engine reliability, transmission reliability. We've discussed upgradability. We've discussed driving ability with the hydraulic power steering, and you're still not convinced. Well, let's keep on going. So if you're interested in fuel mileage, the E90 is definitely the car for you, I think. So we're going to talk specifically about the 2 different vehicles I think you should get if you're going for fuel mileage, and that's the 328i or the 335d. So the 328i, one of the detriments of it is that it does use premium gasoline. You have to use 92 or 93 octane, 91 if you're in California. And if you are spending that extra amount of money, you probably don't really care too much about fuel economy. But let's say you do. If you drive the 328i gently, if you drive it normally like a normal person, not as spiritedly as some other folks, including me, do, you can actually get 30 to 35 miles to the gallon on the highway. I mean, that's a lot of mileage for a sports sedan. It is what it is. It's a sports sedan, and that's a pretty good mileage. Now let's talk specifically about the 335d. The 335d that we're currently in, without the ABC deletes, let's remember it's got a little bit of an old transmission. It's only a 6-speed, not an 8-speed like the newer cars have. Some of them have 10 speeds. Even without the ABC deletes, the DPF and everything else deleted, you get around 30 miles to the gallon. And again, for the amount of power and torque that it gives you from the factory, that's an amazing number. But after you delete it, after you tune it, after it becomes a complete and utter powerhouse, I'm getting 35. My wife, she's the one that mainly drives it. She's getting between 35 and 40 miles to the gallon, and that's on a regular commute with traffic, through highway, through towns. That's extremely impressive. Just a little speed run here. Oh, that's lovely. Of course, one other thing that E90s have is that they're actually one of the most comfortable cars that you can buy, bar none. I feel like this E90 and pretty much any other E90 out there, whether they have a sports seat or not, it's a very comfortable car. It's got leather, it's got a lot of the Bluetooth that you want. Yeah, you can upgrade them, and like I said, upgradability is very, very easy on these things. There's parts for it on eBay, there's parts for it on Amazon. I mean, everywhere. You can get an Android head unit if you really want to. But even as it is from the factory, they are extremely comfortable. They're designed as a luxury vehicle. It's a luxury sports sedan. And man, I've really enjoyed it. It's been quite enjoyable and fun to drive long distances in this thing. So I think we've come to the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments what you think. Should you be looking at E90 3 Series? Should you not? Let me know if you disagree with me, of course. I'd like to know that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can put it down below, like I said, or you can message me on Instagram. I do a lot of Instagramming these days, and people will send me messages and questions. My Instagram, I'll put it down below. It's Flying Gato on Instagram. It's fairly simple to find. So I'll see you guys there. Catch you next time. Peace out.